People of Earth, we have come to upgrade your cosmic consciousness. DNA activation ready. In 3, 2, 1.
Hi, welcome to Q&A on Breakthrough Leadership. I'm Lou Quinto.
And I'm Craig Anderson.
Craig, another special guest today. And I have to say that this guest, he and I have known each other for a very long time, and he's always fun to be around. He's always uplifting. He's so positive. And I'm glad he could take the time out of his schedule to be with us. But it's Joe Jordan, and he's a trainer, and he's a speaker and a consultant like us. And he's written a book, and it's called Sharpen Your Life, 52 Strategic Moments to Create a Lifetime to Success. And what I like about this book, and I guess I like this about a lot of books that are easy to read, quick information, got it, can put it into practice. It's not theoretical, it's practical information. And Joe gives us that opportunity to really look at helping leaders get unstuck. So with that, let's bring on Joe. Okay, welcome, Joe. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Q&A on Breakthrough Leadership. How are you?
I am well. Thank you, sir. It's great to see you. And Craig, great to be with you today. Thanks very much for the invitation to join y'all.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, Craig, Joe and I used to be together at least once a month, right? Joe?
It was fabulous. Our little monthly trips to the southern part of the country. And
I know. And now, because of COVID, we're not doing that. So I think this is actually the first time in over a year that I've seen Jeff. No, I think we've had one conference call.
We had one little conference call, but otherwise, yeah, it's been a long time.
So anyway, well, Joe, what we want to talk to you about, I mean, you're in the training and speaking and consulting business. And one of the things that Craig and I have noticed, and we've gotten this feeling from several of our clients too, and talking to them about the people in their organization, is that with this COVID, there's a lot of resilience that has gone on because we've had to change very quickly. But every now and then there is that opportunity for leaders to, and I'll just use the term, get stuck. And you're the author of a book, 52 Strategic Moments to Creating Lifetime to Success. And it's called Sharpen Your Life. And so I told Craig, what a perfect person to bring on to just give us some quick tips that when a leader is feeling in that stuck position, or maybe even before they are in that stuck position, that they can go ahead and implement some of these things. In fact, in the book, and I'm going to actually turn to the book here and read something to you to jog your memory. Is that
to remind me of what I wrote? Is that
yeah, exactly, Joe, to remind you of what you wrote. But I thought this is a great way to open everything up. And it's in your introduction. It's the first paragraph. It says, no one starts the day wanting to make a decision or implement a plan that will derail their career or seriously mess up their life. Yet plenty of people do that every day. And so I think that's a great starting point for us to start with, is we don't make those decisions that we're going to do something stupid that's going to mess up our career or our life in some situation. What was your impetus for writing the book first? Let's start there.
And really where it started, Lou, was, gosh, a long time ago now, when I was doing career transition work with folks. And I stopped counting resumes at 500. So when I'd done 500 resumes, I stopped counting them. So I've had multiple conversations with folks, most of whom had faced a career transition they did not ask for. They were laid off, the company transitioned or whatever. And so they lost their job.
Did Craig know most of these people?
Pardon? I'm sorry?
Yeah, Craig has a portion of his career where he did nothing but went around and told people they had to leave.
Oh, okay. So I got them after Craig's conversation.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So you were the George Clooney guy running around the country.
That's right. I did it with compassion.
You
right.
did.
Okay. Empathy and compassion.
Yeah.
So really, a lot of these were originally articles I wrote for the folks that were our candidates going through transition, and sort of then took that and built it into the book. And really, at the heart of it was an observation I've made over the years working with folks who have gone through difficult circumstances like that, or who face them, or, COVID or whatever. And that is and I think it's somewhere in the book that I say this, that my observation has been people don't fall apart. because of life's pressures and issues. We fall apart because we respond to life situations with inadequate resources.
Okay.
And the analogy I've used over the years is a balloon. What keeps a balloon inflated is that it has pressure inside of it equal to or greater than the pressure outside of it. And
this isn't turning into a physics.
no, that's as far as I'm going, pal. That's
Okay,
as far as I'm going. Yeah.
Good.
And I'm sure one of your listeners will correct me and say, no, that's really not what's going on.
Yeah.
But
It's a good analogy, though.
yeah, it's a good analogy. And so the issue is not removing the stressors or the issues on the outside. It's how do I compensate by creating the internal force that equalizes that? And that's really what was behind what I tried to do in the book, is help folks find 52 ways to create the equalizing force for themselves.
Okay.
I like
Interesting. Good. Yeah. But reading the book, it's just a whole bunch of micro learnings that if you wanted to, and Craig, I think in our pre-talk before this podcast, you asked the question about why 52. So why don't you ask Joe the question on why is it 52?
There's the question.
Well, the last I counted, there were 52 weeks in a year.
I told you, Lou.
You win the prize. That's a great guess that. And I said, I have no idea. So the book is like one a week, where you can begin to implement it and try it out.
That's really what I try to do and I actually worked with the guy who helped me really craft it in a way that it's really designed to be kind of a set of 52 things you can do. Not that doing things fixes stuff.
Right.
It really is, though, just 52 anchor points of saying, pause and look at this. Like there's multiple chapters about success and some of the things are repeated, but really tried to, if you notice, the book's kind of clustered in categories of things to say, okay, let's spend some time focused on the internal side. Let's focus on some of the things you're doing. Let's talk about success so that folks have a practical game plan that can help them.
Right. You had a good analogy in there. You talked about the veteran photographer for National Geographic's DeWitt Jones.
Yeah.
And he was being interviewed about how he takes pictures. And he really talked about it's what lens you look through and how you look at the situation. How does the book apply that to life? Well,
we choose our lens. And it's, I'm an amateur photographer. I'm not a DeWitt Jones. But as I've, noticed that the lens determines what I'm going to see. And so 3 people can look at the same thing with 3 different cameras and capture something completely different because of their angle or the lens they choose to use. And so that's really what this is designed to do, is give someone some different lenses, because I think that's part of the challenge in life is sometimes we get stuck. If my first camera was one of those little box Kodak Instamatics.
Okay, Joe, you're aging yourself here.
I'm sorry. You're enjoying that because you already know I'm older than you, so this reinforces it for a brief moment, and I will give you that. Okay, but my little Instamatic had one way to see life.
Right.
There was only one lens, and that's where I think a lot of folks professionally get stuck. Is we get stuck with the lens we have, and we can't see things a different way, and therefore we make choices. Back to the introduction. We make sometimes some bad choices because we just have an inadequate lens of what we're looking at.
Right. Yeah. What wasn't there a movie? What was it called? Perspective, where it was the assassination attempt on a president, and there were 3 or 4 different people that saw the same event, and the movie goes through and looks at how that person looked at the event. So when it was done, they shifted, and it was almost like you went back to start, but you were looking at it from someone else's perspective, and you saw different things that other person missed in their perspective.
It's recognizing that, and I don't mean to throw the whole positive thinking troop under the bus by this phrase, but it's recognizing that positive thinking, I think, looks reality firmly in the face. That it's not, I'm going, okay, things are terrible, but I'm going to be chipper. It's things are terrible, and the lens I'm choosing to use helps me see them in a way that I can manage them constructively, not just have to go, okay, it's terrible, but I'm going to pretend it's not. No, it is terrible. I think it was Churchill that says, the situation is rather grim, but I find it rather inspiring. You know, it's horrible. What's going on is horrible. They're bombing our city every night. And I find it as an inspiring opportunity to do something about it. And
Well,
that's
you,
really what
you
we're
do
trying to
know that Churchill drank a lot. So
Yeah, maybe it was the scotch. I don't know.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you about another one of the great items in there around focus, focus, focus. This idea of taking the time to determine the direction of your life. And I do a lot of work with my clients around planning, but I wondered how much of that from the perspective, especially knowing who you were working with, is about the plan for where you want your life to be versus kind of the work side of life. Is it a holistic approach as you're looking at it and we're working with these folks?
It is that. And it's interesting, as you said that, Craig, I was reminded to something that was not original with me, but there was an exercise you would sometimes use with people. And I'd say, Craig, what do you want to do with your life? And you'd tell me something all textbooky. And I'd say, answer that question again. And you'd tell me something. And I'd say, give me one more shot at it. And our belief was by the third time, you told me what you really wanted to do with your life. You know, and we did I'm going to go become a, corporate banker. I'm going to do something. And then the third one is like, I want to write a spy novel. Yeah. And that really got to it. And I think it is that it's recognizing all those things. And sometimes I would counsel folks as they're going through a career transition and saying, okay, if you're going to have this all consuming job, then Lou, that's not going to give any time for these other things you said they're important. Right. So you said you wanted to do some writing. You say you want to, travel more, da, 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 da. If you take this job, you're not going to get that. So is it better that we take something else so we still have time for that? Or your job doesn't give you a chance to do the things or space to do the things you think are really the get you up in the morning kind of stuff. So can you find a job that still gives you some space to do that? Or can you find a volunteer thing? So to your question, it does, I think, have to be all inclusive. Otherwise we start you know what I mean? Compartmentalizing our life. Yeah, that's a hard word in the afternoon. Yeah. We start chopping life up and we become fractured people because I've got my personal life and my work life and my family life and my this life. And I don't know about you guys, but I can't manage all those. I can't juggle that many things.
I find that with a lot of my coaching clients is we talk and, it's like, I'm going to do all these things or even my corporate clients when they're trying to plan their business, it's like, this is all great stuff and highly worthy. Yeah. But there's no way to do all of it at once. So which ones are the ones we're going to focus on now? Which ones are we going to focus on later? Or do we have to change the frame and say, this is the kind of thing we want to have. This is the life I want to have.
Yeah. And it's as we talk in the book about white space, every time I say yes to something, if I don't say no to something else, I run out of white space.
Yeah.
That there's only so much in the frame of life. And people often just keep adding and adding and adding, and we run out of the white space and they wonder why they burn out again.
Remember a few years ago, that was an internet thing. Someone said, say yes to everything for a year. No. I will not.
That is like a short road to insanity. It's
exactly.
Grief, gosh.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too, when it comes to solving our problems, sometimes we believe that the most difficult answers or complicated answers are the best answers. But in your book, one of the 52 strategic moments you talk about, and I just thought it was great, was you call it the value of a cardboard box. Do you want to tell us about that?
If I remember correctly, it was a story of an organization that was having originally a battle over a thermostat.
Right.
And and they found just putting a cardboard box over it eliminated the problem. If I can back that up, I'll tell you a true story relative to that.
Are you saying that wasn't a true story?
that was a true story, but a personal story, I should say, is I worked in an organization once where I insisted that my office was freezing. And it was just cold all the time. And so I finally brought in a space heater and put that in my desk. Well, then all of a sudden I got attention and we did something about my thermostat, because what they didn't realize is what the thermostat that controlled, or my thermostat rather, controlled the president's wife's office. And when I finally put the space heater in, I got it warmed up enough that her office started getting cold. And then suddenly they came in and realized that the internal part of the thermostat was set like at 62 degrees. And she hadn't noticed the problem until I started warming up my office. And that was, again, kind of the value of the cardboard box. The very simplistic thing of me warming up my office suddenly created change somewhere in some organization. And the net of it, though, really with that story is just to recognize that we're often looking for complex answers. Right. When really the simpler, the better. The simple answer is really the thing that can create the lasting impact for it.
And the simpler it is, the easier it is to implement.
Exactly.
As opposed to creating a huge plan to come up with, implement a solution that has so many tentacles that the tentacles inevitably just envelop you, and you get swallowed up by your own solution and get frustrated. So that is a great learning. One of the other learnings I want to talk to about, because this is something that a lot of leaders go through, is, we try to do everything right the very first time. In fact, in many instances, as you know, Joe, and Craig has experienced this as well, leaders will waste an inordinate amount of time making sure what they're trying to do is going to be perfect. But yet one of the techniques that you talk about is mistakes are underrated. And in fact, you use a John Wooden quote that I think is real good. And that is, if you're not making mistakes, then you're not doing anything. I love that. Talk to us about mistakes.
Well, I think, there's for any of us, we don't want to, if I can say, I don't know about you guys, but I don't like rework. I don't like to do something over because, okay, you could have avoided that. And I think there is that in most people. At the same time, and I see this especially as I work with, in fact, tomorrow night I'll be online with a bunch of graduate students at one of the local universities here. And as I work with them, the struggle with them is to help them recognize, I know you're getting taught there's one right answer. And the problem is you're going to go into life looking for it.
Right.
And that pursuit of there is a right answer here. Give me another case study and I'll show you what they should have done. And we can prove that they were wrong and I'm right. That quest that comes in our educational process today leaves us with a bunch of folks who move into leadership roles in companies looking for the perfect answer. And you and I have talked about this from a decision-making standpoint, Lou, trying to eliminate uncertainty under the guise of eliminating risk.
Right.
So they say, I'm looking for more data. I'm looking for more information so I can make the perfect decision. I don't want to make a mistake. Well, what it really is they're just afraid. Right. And so they keep saying, I'm looking for data to manage my risk, when it's really, no, I'm trying to avoid the uncertainty. And the fact is we can't. And when we try to spend all our time trying to take the uncertainty out of every equation, just a whole lot doesn't get done.
Right. And to go back to your analogy of talking to a bunch of undergraduates, that's the way we've been trained.
Yes.
It's been positive conditioning. When we take a test, if we put the same answer that the professor or the teacher was looking for, we get an A. Yeah. If we give an answer that is not what the professor or the teacher is looking for, we get an F. And so I think we have conditioned people over time through our educational system. And I'm not going to debate the merits of whether it was right or wrong, because I think there are merits in, you do know the right answer, particularly in our society of facts don't matter anymore. But we have conditioned people that when you come up with the right answer, you get positive reinforcement.
Yeah. When I'm working sometimes, and you do a lot of work with folks as well as I do, Louis, when I'm teaching the workshop, sometimes I'll pitch out an answer and I'll hear a silence and said, okay, folks, this isn't a what's the capital of Ohio question. There's only an answer to that one. This is a think it through and let's explore the options kind of a question. Because
it's Cleveland, isn't it?
I think it is. I don't know. Every time I throw that out, somebody in the group throws it back at me and says, well,
no, it's Columbus. Just for our listeners, we don't want to make someone seem uneducated. So it is Columbus.
but we spend our time looking for the capital of Ohio. Yeah, and we're sure, and if I look long enough, I'll find it. And it's like, no. And that freezes you again, because you don't have the internal resources to offset the uncertainty that's around you.
Right? Yeah. No, I love that analogy. That's a great analogy. Yeah. And I think a lot of leaders you should really can learn from that analogy is that there always isn't a definite answer.
Yeah.
And sometimes you've got to go out on the limb and you've got to take a chance using the knowledge and the information based on the circumstances that exist today. And you need to move forward. So good. Craig, you, oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going back to your original topic. Go ahead, Joe.
I was just going to say, you know, most of us would say the greatest life lessons we carried into these chapters of life were gained through some of the bad ones. And I think there's a story in the book about the young man who goes to the bank president who's just gotten promoted, and he says, I want to do a good job. How do I succeed? And the man says, you've got to learn how to make good decisions. And, you know, the kid pushes him and he says, well, how do I learn how to make decisions? He's like, well, by getting experience. He says, well, how do I get experience? And he said, by making bad decisions. You know?
Yeah.
And that's for many of us. It's the bad decisions that have really taught us some of the best life lessons in our experience. So
what is it like that Einstein quote where someone asked him, you know, don't you feel like you wasted a whole bunch of time because it took you 999 times to come up with the correct light filament that created the light bulb? Or it wasn't Einstein, it was Edison. And he said, no. He said, because now I know 999 ways not to make a light filament. So lessons learned. Craig?
No, I was just going to say that idea that you're talking about, right? It's the idea that perfect is the enemy of good enough. So you don't always have the luxury of time for perfect information. And sometimes you have to choose from a couple of different imperfect things and just move forward and then do the best you can to mitigate the parts that don't go well.
Yeah.
And you're right. We've worked so hard training people to say there's just this one way. And we've really done a disservice because the world is messy. And as I watch my two children go into the workforce, it's interesting to watch, you know, to see they're learning very quickly. There's not always a very clear one answer.
Yeah.
Wait. My father said there were two ways to do things, my way or the wrong way. Was he wrong? After all these years, was he wrong?
Not in the context of a father, no.
I mean, and that's, you know, using that father analogy, one of the things we were just talking about, our son who's 30 was here last night or a couple nights ago for dinner. And
God, you are old, Joe.
I know. Well, I was 12. I was 12 when I had my first child. But as we're talking with him, you know, we sort of underscored that one of our approaches to, you know, helping him grow up and we hope equipping him for life was that our approach to parenting was, you can do that. This is what happens if you choose that, but it is your choice. And it wasn't the if you, I'm going to, it was always, gosh, you got a choice, whether it's what you're going to eat or what you're going to do. Here's a choice. There are outcomes that come with each. You get to pick.
Geez, is it too late? Is it too late for you and Dottie to adopt me?
It would be an adventure, Lou. It would be an adventure.
I don't see Lou in Texas.
I wouldn't last
all.
2 days in the Jordan household. Well, Joe, at this point during our podcast, what we like to do is to just do a little recap and do what Craig and I called key takeaways. Okay. So, Craig, what were your key takeaways from our conversation with Joe Jordan?
I would say, Joe, the big one for me is just that idea of, you know, sometimes the simple way is the right way, is the easy way, and just don't overcomplicate things. We have such a tendency, and I know that's a weakness for me, is I create elaborate constructs to solve problems when really there's a through way. And if I could just focus on the through way, I save a lot of time. So,
well, hell, you've got a whiteboard that you draw your solutions out on, and you have affinity diagrams and things.
I have 3 whiteboards.
Well, I think you should go and take 2 down now.
I don't need the other 2 anymore. I can go focus.
There you go.
Help you on the road to simplicity. Take 2 of those things out. So that was good. All right. My key takeaway in this whole thing is that, you know, look, when you're stuck, there's got to be ways to do things. And Joe, you have 52 in this book. It's a quick read. There are some great personal stories in there that are easy to do. And particularly if you do it bite by bite and one a week. and try to implement things and try to do those things. So over a year period of time, I truly believe it would help leaders get unstuck in so many different situations.
Great.
Yep.
So Joe, what's your key takeaway from your crazy time here on Q&A on Breakthrough Leadership with Craig and Lou?
My key takeaway is I am thrilled there are guys like you out doing stuff like this, because we all need fresh wind in our sails, guys. If there's not too many holes in somebody's sail right now, they need some fresh wind in it. And I applaud you for doing it, because this is stuff people need right now. As they need the encouragement, they need to laugh, they need a fresh perspective. So my takeaway is thanks for doing what you're doing, gentlemen. It's really valuable for people.
Well, we appreciate that, Joe. So, and after knowing me for so long, you see now that my relationships, you've seen Craig and I banter back and forth, that I don't have any mercy on him either, just like I don't have on you.
He's consistent, Craig. He is consistent.
Oh, I've known him a long time.
My word of the year, consistent. And I am consistent. Well, Joe, if folks want to get in touch with you, how can they get in touch with you?
It's pretty simple. An email is just joe@joejordan.com.
Perfect.
So that's the easiest way. And reach out. I'd love to connect with folks and want to chat about any of the ideas in the book. I'd love to continue the conversation.
Awesome.
An email that is modeled after the value of a cardboard box. I love it. So, well, Joe, thanks for joining us on Q&A on Breakthrough Leadership. Hopefully in the future, we'll have you back on and maybe talk about some of the other methods that you have for people to help leaders get unstuck.
I welcome the opportunity.
Thanks again, Joe.
Thanks,
be good.
Guys. Stay safe.
Joe.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Bye.
Lou, that was a great interview. You were so right. Joe's a great guy and has a lot of really valuable information to share.
Yeah,
So,
I always enjoy spending time with Joe when we've had the opportunity to work together on so many different things, because as I said, I mean, he's just an always positive personality, someone that when you're feeling down, call Joe, because he'll get you out of it.
well, and at least he'll give you 52 easy to understand ways to get yourself really reoriented. So I really enjoyed that. And we'd encourage all of you to buy the book.
One tip a week for an entire year.
That's right. And Columbus is the capital of Ohio. So
I'm sure all of our listeners in Ohio would appreciate that.
we are full of knowledge today on Q&A and Breakthrough Leadership. So if you like this episode, please like, share, subscribe. You can find all of our prior episodes on QAleadership.com. Follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn, and you'll be able to see all our episodes as they come out new every week on Thursdays at 9:30 Eastern. And finally, we're available on all your podcasting platforms. So when you're out walking that COVID dog that you got, or maybe actually driving somewhere, you can catch up on all the great content that we have. So until next time, I am Craig Anderson.
And keep your hands washed. Keep your distance. I'm Lou Quinto.